And now we can talk about keyframes. Taking a look where we left off, let's look at this adjustment layer where I've added the tint effect, imagining that we want this tint effect to wear off gradually as we go through these three shots. So what I'd like to do then is keyframe the tint effect. So I'm going to tint the value for amount to tint, which is essentially going to give us a transition between the full 100% amount of the effect and a 0 amount. So first we will set our keyframe at the beginning at a value of 100, and you'll see in this little timeline here that we've got our little keyframe diamond showing up here on this track. So if we want this to be 100 at the beginning and somewhere towards the end, we want it to be 0, we'll just simply change that down to 0 by clicking and dragging, or clicking here, typing 0 and hitting enter. But either way, we end up with our keyframe down here on the timeline in the effect controls window. Now, if I were to start at the beginning again, you'll notice as I scrub through, it gradually starts to become more and more saturated. But maybe we actually don't like how it really seems to get away from the tint very quickly. Like we are almost feeling saturated. I can tell here that we're seeing less tint. And that's maybe a third of the way through this keyframing. So I wanted to actually stay more tinted for longer. So how can I do that? There are a couple of different ways. One of the things that happens between these two keyframes is all these middle values in between 100 and 0. Sorry, put this at the end. All the way between 100 and 0. And the things in between are called interpolated values. It is interpolating the value between 100% and 0%, and it is following some mathematical formulas. So we can alter these formulas by choosing the different type of interpolation that the keyframe will have. So we can control click, right click, if you're on a PC, on this keyframe, and you'll see we've got a few choices here of the different types of interpolation. And so if I actually wanted this to stay tinted longer, I would choose this down here, which is called ease out, which means it's going to take its time and slowly start to move towards that 0. Whereas linear, which is basically just a straight line between 100 and 0, that is what the default interpolation is. So if we choose ease out, we'll see that it changes the shape of this keyframe. Here, I'll move it out a little bit. You can see it's changed from a diamond to more of like an hourglass looking keyframe. So if I'm here, and if I want to actually move back and forth between the keyframes, I can click this to go to the next keyframe. You'll see that that's a little blue dot there lit up because I'm on a keyframe. If I click to the right again, it'll go to the ending one, and you'll see that that is lit up. But if I'm in the middle here, there's nothing. I've got none of those keyframes selected. Nothing is lit up here. If I were to actually just click this, it'll make a keyframe at the interpolated value that's currently going on with the way that I have them set. So if I hit this, it adds the keyframe there, and you see automatically, since this one is ease out, which means it's a Bezier curve, and this one is linear, I get this sort of hybrid, solid looking hourglass thingy, which is really going to, it's a continuous Bezier, which is another form, or actually just a regular Bezier. We also have auto Bezier, continuous Bezier, and then there's the hold keyframe, which obviously just means that it will stay at that very same value until another keyframe is introduced. And ease in produces essentially the opposite effect of what we had used here. So if I were to get rid of the middle keyframe and show you again how it stays longer in the tinted space, and we can play around with where these are in the timeline to get the desired effect. The more obvious ways to use keyframes are on something like, say, motion. So I'm going to go ahead and just hide this top track. So with this first clip here, we will add a little bit of motion. And first we'll keyframe some scale. We'll start at 100, and then by the time the clip is over, let's say right there, we'd like to get it to scale up to 120%. So if I come here to the beginning again, we see our clip starts out like it did before, but now we should see what's essentially a digital zoom. As we play through the clip, we get closer to that larger value. And this is sometimes referred to as the Ken Burns effect or the pan and scan effect. And it's equally as effective on a video clip as it is on a still image. I'm going to go ahead and undo those things. And another way we can do things is to keyframe the position. So if I start here with it centered up and looking good, and then by the end of it, I actually would like it to go off screen below, I can actually just choose the ending point there. It's going to make my keyframe. And now actually I see that it's just going to drop right off there. That's great. But maybe I want to have it be done sooner. So I choose the spot at which I want it to happen by. And then I can just move my keyframe over. And now I have the effect happening over that new duration. Another thing that's handy, I'm going to undo these things. Another thing that is handy about this is that if you click on this top thing here, this motion itself, you'll notice that it highlights the frame of the clip inside the program monitor. And now if I click over here in the program monitor and I actually want to click and drag the clip, it will move around. So this is only when this top level of the motion fixed effect is highlighted. And of course this means that it would be great and easy to keyframe effects in a quick and easy way. So if I were to undo that and start at the center, I could actually click keyframes for the position and the scale on the first frame, and then move my playhead forward. And then if I go back here, choose to highlight the motion, then I can actually come over here and grab this and manipulate it however I want. I'm moving it in terms of position, and maybe I want to scale it as well, so I can actually grab the corner of it and scale it down. And there we go. Well, the other great thing about this is that we are setting keyframes both for position and for scale. So each keyframe corresponds to a certain value. Now you can see when I play it, it smoothly scales and positions. Now, if I were to select these two keyframes and choose to ease out from them, and let's choose the ending keyframes and we'll choose to ease in. Now, when I go and play it back, how's that look differently? You see it's kind of got a little acceleration, deceleration thing happening where it's not just a straight line, a straight ramp from one value to another. It's sort of like going down a slide where you start out slowly and then you go a little faster, and that's for the ease out, and then for the ease in, you're sort of coming in quickly and then you slow down and slide to a stop, sort of like at the bottom of a slide. These are easy to visualize when you twirl down these disclosure triangles, and you can see the actual velocity curve that's resulted from your keyframes. This is a visual representation of the velocity of the value change over time. And of course, you can add keyframes to almost any value that you can manipulate in the Effect Controls panel. In fact, anytime you twirl down in a disclosure triangle and you see that there is a stopwatch, you can automate that value. You can keyframe that value. And as soon as you click on the stopwatch and it turns blue, then you'll know that it is active and ready to begin keyframing. For example, if I were to make any changes to the audio channel volume, the left-right balance, any of that, it would immediately result in a keyframe because these are already highlighted blue. I don't want to do that though, so I'll actually just undo. So yes, keyframes are a great way to produce animated effects and to change values over time.